Welcome to Rough Cut Film Review. I've got a review of the Ben Afleck film Argo. Okay, so this was actually an article, sort of a work of journalism. It was converted into a screenplay, and then Ben Affleck got his hands on it, and he's made a film, and he also stars in the film. So, Ben Affleck's been a very busy boy in this regard. It comes up as, there's an element of based on a true story, which I'm always very sceptical about. If you've heard my Snowtown review, you'll know that. But, it's actually a very interesting premise, and it's very timely for this film to come out. So, Ben Affleck, his career's actually been rather interesting, while consistently not really being particularly interesting. So when we think back to his early career, I think of his collaborations with Kevin Smith. So we're talking Mallrats, Chasing Amy, that kind of thing. He then rose to prominence with Matt Damon in Good Will Hunting as that sort of, best friend, workman guy. Then suddenly he was in all these blockbusters of really dubious quality. So I'm thinking of Armageddon and and Pearl Harbor, which was, just an absolute stinker. I thought he was sort of awkward and unsatisfactory as a superhero in Daredevil. He just didn't sit properly, and you wonder about his sort of star quality and things like that. It's just a little bit too bland. And then he went on to make what's considered to be one of the worst films ever made in Jiggly, but worth mentioning, I've not seen that and I'm not going to see it. So recently, Ben Affleck has actually, after a very mixed bag of a career, he started working behind the camera. It's worth mentioning he's made a lot of money as well, to be fair. So it's actually quite difficult for an actor to become a director. I mean, obviously there are people like Clint Eastwood who you would expect to do a really good job and do, but I think Ben Affleck is more sort of the Madonna side of things, where you think, really, that doesn't sound good, but actually he does a very good job. He keeps everything tight, and it's a very confident effort. It's a very assured effort, this, and there's a lot of flair in there as well, and it's not necessarily of the quality. Looking at his films he's previously made, and as an actor, you wouldn't necessarily expect this kind of quality. So, who's actually in Argo? So, in terms of the cast, obviously we've got Affleck himself. On top of that, we've got Alan Arkin, we've got John Goodman, we've got Bryan Cranston. So, really proper actors that I really, really like, and they're all fantastic in this. The script itself is really good. It's actually really, really funny. It's very witty and it's very knowing. In quite a subtle way, it just sort of goes about its own business. It's not a showy film, which I was really impressed about, and that's obviously largely down to Ben Affleck himself. So what's the setup? So we've got the Iranian Revolution of '79, which really did take place. The film kicks off with sort of a comic book style opening, which is actually very sympathetic to the Iranian rebels. They point out that actually, the US-backed Shah, who was in charge of the country, was he was a US puppet. He was decadent. He was basically completely undemocratic. All this kind of thing. So we get a real sense of why the Islamic rebels, why they're rebelling, why they're revolting, and why the US hasn't necessarily been brilliant. They storm the rebels storm the US embassy, where Americans are very nervously shredding documents, smashing computers, and all this kind of thing. After a while, about 12 of them are taken hostage. So then the US has got to concoct a crazy scheme to actually rescue these hostages, which is a feature film that they're going to a shill pretend feature film. They're going to go to Iran and they're going to pretend to make this film that's called Argo. There's some fantastically witty lines from the Hollywood executives, not all of which know that this is a fake film. There's loads of stuff about sort of American culture and Hollywood culture, and so we see lots of Star Trek and Star Wars references, which are really, really good. It's really nicely done, and it really subtly, it's fairly, really is quite subtle. Just puts American culture and American cultural imperialism and Hollywood, the way Hollywood projects Americanism, alongside fundamental basic Islamic principles in just a really nice, gentle way. It just sort of lets them sit there and lets you think about them. It's really nicely done. There's also stuff in there about the Cold War, but it's a very, very understated, very nice, very cleverly written film. And I'm really surprised. Well done, Ben Afleck. He's done a great job with this. There's, it's a really good film. So for a little while now, I've had my eye on my 2012 year in review special. I'm going to do some best of, some of the worst of, all this kind of thing. I did this for 2011 actually. It's one of the first ever videos I did for YouTube, but this was back when I didn't realise there was a time cap on YouTube video, so I recorded the whole thing, which came to about 35 minutes. Didn't have the wherewithal to edit it down, so that's still not out there on the internet. But when I think back, just off the top of my head, 2011 had films like Drive, it had The Muppets, which I loved, Tyrannosaur, and my favourite of the year was We Need to Talk About Kevin, and there were loads of other brilliant films like A Separation as well. 2011, 2012 has seen a few good blockbusters, but nothing in my mind to really touch what happened in 2011. I thought there were some truly exceptional films. So where I'm going with this is I am glad that I have Argo in my back pocket, and I can say, well, Argo was pretty good for 2012, because I think we're struggling to reach the heights of 2011. We've also got The Hobbit as well, which I very much trust Peter Jackson. Not too impressed with some of the videos the trailers I've seen for The Hobbit, but I do trust Peter Jackson. A trilogy for the story of The Hobbit seems a bit extreme, but he knows what he's doing, and I'm absolutely certain that Peter Jackson wouldn't do that just for the money, because he loves his Lord of the Rings more than most. So there we go. Anyway, Argo, very good. Well done, Ben Affleck. I'm sure lots of people are very surprised.